I have a question. Have you ever noticed that some people don't just get offended, they leave offended? Everything feels like a personal attack to them. Every correction feels like rejection. Every disagreement feels like disrespect. At some point, offense stops being an event and becomes an identity. That's what I want us to talk about today, an offended heart. Now, what is an offended heart? Being offended is normal. An offended heart is different. It is a heart that has chosen to build a home around pain. Instead of processing hurts, it preserves it. Instead of healing, it rehearses it. Eventually, everything is interpreted through the wounds of yesterday. The person may not even realize they are no longer responding to reality, they are responding to unresolved pain. The dangers of an offended heart is that an offended heart changes how you hear people. An offended heart is a simple question sounds like criticism, and advice feels like judgment, correction feels like humiliation, love feels like control. You stop hearing what people are saying because you are listening through your wounds. But the Bible warns us against this. In the book of Proverbs 18 verse 19, a brother offended is harder to win than a fortified city. The book of Proverbs says a brother offended is harder to win than a fortified city. Notice the scripture doesn't say impossible, but it does say difficult. Because offense builds walls where relationships are meant to be built. Offense builds walls where relationships are meant to be built. Because offense produces blindness. One of the greatest dangers of offense, it convinces you that you're always right. When you're offended, everyone else becomes the problem. You rarely ask, could I be misunderstanding this? Instead, you collect evidence to support your hurts. The offended heart becomes both the persecutor and the judge. But Jesus warned us in the book of Matthew chapter 24 verses 10. It says, many will be offended, betray one another, and hate one another. Notice the progression. First offense, then betrayal, then hatred. Because very few people wake up hating someone. Because hatred usually begins when an offense that was never dealt with. Because hatred usually begins with an offense that was never dealt with. And one of the greater questions then will be, why do we hold on to offense? Why does one hold on to offense? Because sometimes offense gives us something we secretly don't want to lose. It justifies our bitterness, it excuses our distance, it protects our pride. And if I stay offended, I never have to forgive. If I stay offended, I never have to confront my own heart. If I'm offended, I don't have to confront my heart. But healing requires surrender. Unfortunately, healing requires that we surrender. But a mature heart isn't one that never gets hurt. A mature heart isn't becoming impossible to hurt. A mature heart is refusing to let hurt become your identity. A mature heart is refusing to let hurt become your identity. And Jesus was rejected, misunderstood, betrayed, mocked. Yet he refused to let offense dictate his mission. He refused to let hurt dictate his mission. On the cross he prayed, Father, forgive them. And that is the opposite of an offended heart. Ask yourself this: instead of asking who offended me, ask, why did this affect me so deeply? Instead of asking who offended me, ask yourself, why did this affect me so deeply? Because sometimes the wound isn't about today. It's exposing something that has been there for years. Healing begins when we stop defending our pain and start surrendering it. Healing begins when we stop defending our pain and start surrendering it. But I'd like to say this before closing with this video, is that the offended heart doesn't imprison the person who hurt you, it imprisons you. Forgiveness doesn't say what's happened was acceptable. It says, I refuse to let what happened control who I become. Don't allow your yesterday's wounds to determine tomorrow's relationships. Don't allow yesterday's wound to determine tomorrow's relationships. In other words, choose healing over offense. Choose freedom over bitterness. Because a healed heart can love again. A healed heart can love again. But I'd like to say this. Has there ever been a time when you realized you were reacting from old wounds rather than present situations? What has helped you heal? With this, I really like to invite you into this discussion, because I don't want this video to just be me saying to you, but I'd like this to be a dialogue. And I would really appreciate to hear you on the comment section, engaging with me on this. And this is the question: has there ever been a time when you realized you were reacting from old wounds rather than the present situation? And what has helped you heal? Thank you so much.